We are live.
All right, we'd like to welcome everyone to our meeting today. We will call this meeting to order, and we would like to excuse Mrs. Cherry, who's joining us by phone. We will start our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Mrs. Perkins.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. The floor will be open for a motion to approve the agenda.
Madam Chair, so moved.
Is there a second? Second. Do I need to do a roll call vote? Or?
No.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. That passes. Will the floor will be open for a motion to approve minutes from the previous meeting.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the minutes from the past meeting.
There a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes. All right, superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Some fun things that I'd like to share with the school board and also those that are tuning into the report today. Earlier this month, myself and Mr. Johnson, we were invited to present at the Idaho Literacy Leadership Summit in Boise. That was on February 5th. Yes, I kept that secret from you. And so this conference, and this was the flyer for it, delivering on the promise of literacy for all. It was hosted by the 95% group, which we are using their product here. But we shared with the attendances the progress that we've made at Terraton and Hamer Elementary Schools. And it was really a fun conference to go to. The presenters that you see here, they're experts in reading, and they talked about the science of reading. Some of the highlights from the conference that I just wanted to bring out, and this is a couple of the quotes from the slides that we had. The impact of school leadership, which I look at that, even though school leadership, usually people think of the principal, but I believe that's the school board, the superintendent and the principals. It takes all of us to look at that. But the finding on that one is that the leadership is second only to the classroom instruction among all school related factors that contribute to what students learn at school. And so, yes, we do have to have our classroom teachers who are top notch and using the techniques and things that are research based. But if you don't have the leadership that's there to back that and set up the process for it to happen, you're not going to have it happen systematically throughout the school. And so one of the other quotes that came where it says, "Bold change takes bold leadership." And I think this speaks a lot for our let me just get that on there so we can see that a little bit. This speaks a lot for our organization, and also reflects on what the school board has done and what we've done as a team, as superintendent and the board. But it takes it is up to school and district leaders to construct effective, ongoing professional development for educators, equip them with evidence-aligned curriculum and resources, and create schedules that allocate sufficient time for reading and instruction. And that's one thing that I've worked with Mr. Johnson with the setup when I came over from my previous school district. One of the things that I set up immediately with the principal, even before Mr. Johnson, was we need to set up our instruction in a certain way. And then as I looked at that format, we didn't have all of the evidence-based curriculum and instruction. And so it was the perfect timing of bringing over Mr. Johnson, who was helping set up all those interventions. But then also with the literacy funds that the governor helped increase, they've been awesome. Like, we've utilized those funds from the governor, and the governor's really been a supporter of literacy. We've taken that and we've bought programs that are highly effective. And even with the progress that we've had, we're seeing fewer and fewer students have the summer lag. They're retaining information from the spring over to the fall, and that's exactly what this program and this process is supposed to be doing, and it's working. And so we were invited to go to this conference. We shared with them the things that we were doing at our elementary school. Again, I shared with this with the board last month that even when state board members came and visited, we've been invited to go in a couple of weeks, pending on whether or not the House legislature and the Senate will have the time for us. But we have a tentative invite to go present to those committees here in 2 weeks. So again, it'll just be a short 10 to 15-minute presentation, showing them that all the different things on how the funding from the literacy money that the governor allocates to us, that we're putting it to great work. And we are doing some great things here at our small school district. And so it was exciting. It was a lot of fun to go to.
That's good publicity for our
And Hamer Elementary had the highest growth in the state from the fall to the spring test. So it just shows that the techniques and things that we're using, again, we can't do it without professional development. We can't do it without the buy-in from the teachers. We can't do it without the structure of the principals, and we can't do it without our school board who's supportive of that. So it really encompasses a whole picture of what we're doing. And so it was a lot of fun. Any questions from the board members on that activity? Second part I want to share on the superintendent report is just ISBA questions. I know that you guys do get the ISBA emails, but I just wanted to highlight some of those as they come through during the superintendent report. And this one, the question that came out to the ISBA was board committees, how are they formed and how do they work? We've been doing this. We've been following this process since I've been superintendent. Our policy 1250 does define board committees and how to define their purposes. But in a nutshell, you have board committees, and then you also have or school district committees. The committee work really gathers information either for the admin team or for the board members. And so if you guys do determine that we need to have a board committee as defined by policy, they have several considerations that are recommended. That there should be only 1 or 2 board members on that committee. And the reason why is it avoids creating a board quorum. And so if we do have a board committee, and currently, I don't know, the only committee that I can really think of that had to, and we haven't met with the Education Foundation, that one had you and Willie on it.
What about the safety? Was it just one?
And safety just had the one, and it was more of a district committee instead of because the committees right now that I can think of, we have our curriculum committee, but that's one that's set up by the superintendent. It's not set up by the school board.
And we're not on it.
And you're not on it. And so we bring the recommendations back to the school board for that. So we don't really have to follow this type of recommendation, because if we do have a board committee, what that would look like is we would get together and let's say we wanted to have a committee, I don't know, to look at, I have some whatever issue. And we said, well, let's set up a committee for that. We would then have to identify what that committee is, all of the different aspects of it. And then when that committee met, you would take public notice, post public notice for that board meeting, even though there's only 1 or 2 people. That's the recommendation from ISBA. And then take the notes on it. So really just wanted to use this as an answer to the question, but it's kind of like an information piece to the board members, but also to our patrons who are thinking or maybe wondering, what does it take to have a committee, or why do they have the different committees? Comments or thoughts from you guys on this at all?
I like to see us stay away from most committees.
And that's kind of what, when I've gone to the ISBA trainings and asked those questions, that's what they've recommended. And unless we really need it, I think there's some that
we get down in the mix with it that way, and we're too vulnerable to.
It's messy.
Yeah, messy. That's a good word. I think if problems arise, I like to see them bring the problems to us, with us not being involved in the problem, whatever it may be, or the committee as such.
And I like that process. I've found that even with me as superintendent, as I've had more experience over the years, like going to the principals and asking their leadership teams. Mrs. Scott's done a great job with that this year with her leadership team with several things. They hash out the different informations, and if I were there during the discussions, they would look to me and wait for it. So it's good to let those committees come up with a recommendation. And after they were finished with it, then they invited me in and said, "Hey, these were the things that we thought of." And then I take it and bring it back to the board. So, okay, that's page one. I'm going to move through the good news for our school district. Girls basketball head coach Jelena Dixon, she had a milestone this season as a coach. She's had 100 wins plus. This was 2 or 3 weeks ago, so she's probably around 105 now with that. And so just wanted to congratulate her with that. The girls basketball team competed in the district tournament. They were ranked 4th going in and ended up beating the 2nd place and 3rd place team to take 2nd place. They qualified for the state play-in game, fell short during that game, but I thought they exceeded expectations this year. Super proud of our girls program, and congratulations to Coach Dixon for that. Boys basketball team plays at Ryrie. They're 1-1 right now in the tournament. Every game will be a loser goes home game. So tomorrow's at Ryrie. If they win that, they'll play either at Firth or North Fremont next week. Boys wrestling is going on right now. I could have I do get the text from the admin that's over there right now, but we have some kids that are moving on there, so I'll give some more updates as on the next ones. Their state tournaments next week, so from today, the boys wrestling will find out which of our wrestlers make it to state. Girls wrestling is going to be Friday and Saturday in Pocatello. They do put that as a 2-day tournament, mostly because I was asking about this. Why are the girls tournaments 2 days? Part of it is on certain weight divisions, they have a ton of girls. And if you think about it, a lot of, like, statistically, you're going to have more girls at a certain weight than you will with the boys. And at least also that with all the girls that are doing that. So to have a fair tournament, they have to put it over 2 days on that. If we have any girls that qualify for state, it will also be held at the exact same time as the boys wrestling state. And that is in Pocatello this year. Update on our CTE programs. That's, our clubs are the FFA, BPA, FCCLA. Those are the clubs. And CTE set for career technical education. So a lot of times our club leaders are also the same people that teach CTE. And so we have a thing called CTE Pathways, or that's available to us. What that is it's a specific number of classes that the students can take, and then they prepare for a capstone project or assessment. If they pass that, then they have certain qualifications for post-high school employment opportunities. And if a school has a pathway, they qualify for federal Perkins grants, which is about $15,000. So for this year, we only have one pathway, and that's in our BPA. It's called Digital Communications Pathway. However, I just wanted the school board to know that we are applying for 3 new pathways for next year. So Mrs. Day is applying for an agriculture welding pathway. Mr. Hogue is applying for the automotive maintenance and light repair. And Mrs. Williams, with her child development classes and different things that she has with FCCLA, is going to apply for an education and training. So it's basically like pre-teachers for a CTE pathway. And so these have been submitted to the state. The state will, I think they're going to approve it. I can't say, but if they do approve it, then that does allow us to be eligible for $15,000 for each program, which is awesome. So right now we get $15,000 of Perkins money just for the digital communications pathway, but we can't use that $15,000 for any of the other programs unless we have a pathway.
So that money, the 15,000, is used to do the program?
To do to enhance the
So
program.
it's not for the students.
No, it's not for this. So like when you look at
Because
that,
up there, they qualify for post-employment, but that 15,000 doesn't have any.
no. That's I probably should have put that on a different line. So what the CTE pathway, if a student passes that and they pass the capstone assessment, they basically can put on their transcripts and diploma, I have completed the education and training pathway. So if somebody did this, they could automatically leave high school and come in and work as a paraprofessional and qualify as a paraprofessional. And if somebody was they wanted to be a teacher growing up, like they're like in high school, they're like, I want to be a teacher. They could take this pathway and it pushes them in that direction. And they already have different classes and things that give them that experience to help them be prepared for that career. So it's an exciting thing that our CTE teachers are doing for that. Any other questions on the CTE pathways and what we're trying to accomplish with that? Okay. So a couple club updates. FFA is preparing for some upcoming competitions. We'll talk about one of the proposals that they have in the next going. Our basic auto class took a tour of Ron's Tire Factory. I know that there are some of Mr. Hope's classes are also going to be taking some local field trips as well. BPA, they are in Boise right now. So the state competition in Boise is going on. Jordan Palmer, she's not in this picture, but she got second place and she qualified for nationals. And then Chase Van Epps, who is in this picture, and you can see her in this nice business suit over here. So Chase is a sophomore here at West Jefferson, and she ran for and was selected as a state officer in BPA. So for her officer, she's going to be the president of marketing for BPA, and she qualified to go to nationals also. So I believe she'll be participating in this as an officer and probably help out with next year's state events and then also the national events. So that was quite an extensive process. She had to do interviews and presentations and different things like that to be selected for that. So that's a great honor that one of our students here at West Jefferson has been elected as a state officer in their organization. Pretty cool for her. Our FCCLA did great at the regional competition. So here's Mrs. Williams, Mrs. W. Williams. She is the new advisor. So she's in her rookie year as the FCCLA. And I believe they had 12 or 14 kids qualify for state. Here are some of those that they had on there. And you can see through there. The ones that they have silver, gold, and bronze, or gold, silver, and bronze, I should say that way. Looks like we had 2 gold. Anna Williams had a project on Focus on Children, and Sonnet Scott, Repurpose and Redesign, also got a gold award. But all of these individuals qualified to go to the state tournament, which is coming up here in a few, I don't know, it's going to be in April. So they'll be going to an April state tournament to see which ones can qualify for nationals. So congratulations to our FCCLA. They're doing a great job. Mrs. Williams is doing a great job in her rookie year as the FCCLA advisor. Here's a couple things that happened over last couple of weeks. There was a good turnout at the high school Valentine's dance. This is there in the district office, ALC auditorium, there on the stage. And then also Mrs. Dowling's leadership class. They had taken the time during leadership class and other times to have a handwritten message to all 205 students, teachers, and staff. I've gone through and read through a lot of fun messages that are there, but they either put them on the kids' lockers, or if the kids didn't have lockers, they put them in the hallways where people would see them. But it's amazing to be able to see the good things that the kids are doing for each other. And shout out to the leadership class, all the efforts of the kids that are taking that efforts. Good job on that.
Every student got one.
Every student.
That's great.
Yep.
Great.
Every student got one. And they were written by students, 2 students, and the leadership class. Just wanted to give the school board an update on our counselor. A couple months ago, we talked about the Apply Idaho Scholarship Idaho. Here's some of the recent information from that. Apply Idaho, if you remember, is a one-stop apply resource for high school seniors. And as of right now, 87% of our high school seniors have applied for college. 34 of them use the Apply Idaho format, and 7 of them applied directly to college. And that's where we get the 87%. So 41 out of our 47 students have applied. I talked to Mr. Guimar, said, what about the other 6? And he's just said, we have about 6 kids who are just pretty adamant that they're not going to college. They don't want to go to college. But everyone's had the opportunity. Everyone's had the opportunity to do that. Some other updates just on the 2 main scholarship opportunities from the state of Idaho, the Idaho Opportunity. 22 have submitted it. 20 has started it and 5 haven't. I think that adds up. He's following up with those that haven't finished it to submit. And then the Idaho launch is the new one that the governor has pushed out here this last year. 22 have submitted. 2 have started. There's 17 of them that have accepted a contingent offer. So that means that 17 have received it. That's an $8,000 scholarship for each kid for an Idaho school. And then the 6 that aren't applying, the 5 or 6 haven't started. So, but Mr. Guimar is doing a great job following up with the kids. It's a fine line between having that opportunity for them and the kids to take advantage of it. Even on the announcements today that I heard for the high school, they were reminding students, sign up for your scholarships. A lot of scholarship windows close at the end of this month. And so they are doing those types of advertisements out there. A couple things coming up here next week. On February 22nd, the counseling department's going to take all the 7th and 8th grade girls, it's like you've got a daughter there on this one, on a field trip to BYU, Idaho. The title is called Women in STEM. So they're going to go over to BYU, Idaho. They're going to look at careers just as an idea to help encourage girls look at science, engineering, mathematics. Can't remember what the T stands for. I just went blank. Technology. I'm using technology. Thank you, Nedra. See? Another thing coming up on the 26th is the FAFSA night for the seniors and their parents. They are going to send out a lot of information on this, but that will be from 6 to 8 in the high school computer lab. The College of Eastern Idaho will be there, and they will have support for Spanish there as well to help any of our Spanish parents or parents who speak Spanish, excuse me. They'll be there to be able to help them. And then on March 6th, all the high school juniors are going to go to Higher Education Day at BYU, Idaho. 9 colleges will be there on campus. So I think 8 Idaho colleges and 1 from out of state. I'm not sure which one is out of state. And then they'll have a campus tour. So that's something where all high school juniors will be invited to go to that. So that's some exciting things that we have going on here at the school. And, there's probably a lot more I could go into, but
So many good things.
a lot of good things. A lot of good things. So thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I'll turn the time back over to you.
Mrs. DeGard, do you have any public comment?
Yes, I have one. We received an email of thanks.
You want to go into that microphone while we have that? This be where we have the kids in the next.
We received an email of thanks from the Centennial Community Cooperative. They met here last night in our auditorium, and they just said, I wanted to reach out and say thank you again for letting us use your building last night. And thank you for John helping us set up printer projector and get everyone connected to Wi-Fi as needed. We had a very productive meeting, and the space was perfect for the number of people in attendance. Have a great rest of your week. Best, Taylor Fury.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to our next item. The floor will be open for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Madam Vice Chair, I so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right. We'll move down to action items. Number 1 on the list is purchase approvals.
All right. So, Madam Vice Chair, as we talked last month again, we did approve the first portion of the diesel fuel purchase last time, and we mentioned that we were waiting to see. Last time in January, we bought the 10,000 gallons. We had a great deal at $260, and you can see already in like 2 weeks how much it went up. Went from $260 to $290. So one of the reasons why we didn't buy more at that first time is we didn't have space in our storage tanks. So as we got the winter mix down a little bit, what we do is we take the number 1 and the number 2, we mix it together for our mix. And so
This fuel is more expensive, just simply because of
the number 1 is.
Yeah.
The number 1 is. So the number 2 is the one that was the same one that went up just with the cost. The number 1 is always about whatever that difference is. They put the different additives in, so it's always just a little bit more. And so, but where we make our mix is we mix the 2 together and put them in our storage tank. So this really should last us almost again until next year this time. And comparing it to last year, we're still 20,000 less than what we were spending last year at this time. So
Just because of gas prices.
just because of the base price on the oil and fuel. Where I could pull it up, but I remember with the 10,000 last year, it was $14,000 less on that first purchase. So I know that we're still under what we paid last year on it. So what needs to be ratified today to the board is the cost to Mud Lake Oil for the combined purchase from those two for $26,443. And so that's what we have for this action item. Are there any other questions I can help with before?
Okay, before we open for a motion to ratify the purchase of number 1 and number 2 diesel from Mud Lake Oil delivered on February 1st, 2024.
Madam Chair, I so move.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes. All right, the next item, out-of-state travel requests.
All right. Just waiting for my computer. Here it goes. Sorry. There we go. Out of state. All right. The administration has received a request from 2 student organizations for out-of-state travel. Our policy 2550, this is a field trip policy, says that any activity that takes students out of state must be approved in advance by the board. Now, with both of these, one is from the FFA and one is from girls softball. We'll present them individually to the board. The first one is our FFA department has come and asked if they could travel to the Northern Utah FFA Invitational in Tremonton. And that'd be Thursday, February 22nd, approximately 12 students, 2 adults and 1 bus driver, and it's 1 day of travel on that. This is just, again, it's a 1-day event. That'd be Thursday, the 22nd, just to Tremonton for that.
How does this get paid for?
They pay for this out of their club account.
So they're only gone during school hours?
Yep,
And how do they get money in their club account? Yeah,
fundraisers.
fundraisers?
And Mrs. DeGraw, we went and put a list together, and we can hand these out to the board, and we'll be able to put these. These are available also for public if they would like to have those. All of our funds are open to the public. So if anybody wants a request of where your funds at, where they can come in and request it. The FFA over the years, they actually have 2 different accounts that were built up. I believe during the fair a couple of years ago, there was a donated animal that was auctioned off. The community and members put money in, and that went in and built up a really big nest egg for FFA to use for travel. This event here really, I don't know what the cost is to get into the FFA Invitational. It can't be more than a couple $100, but it's a 1-day event. Where the other FFA events, especially something like this, where Mr. Hogue and Mrs. Day, they're working really hard to build their program and get the kids excited about competing in the FFA events. And this is one place where Tremonton's pretty close. It's just over the border. And honestly, it's closer. It's a lot closer than going to Moscow. If we go to Northern Idaho, like these are the type of events, I think we should be looking into those. And so my recommendation would be that it's approved with them.
So these funds that they have, if they have a fundraiser, everything goes into the right place.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
And do they have to pay to belong to any of these things?
So if they're in FFA, they do have a membership fee that they pay.
Okay.
And they take those fees into
So
different
you've
things.
got a place here that says how the funds are earned. I see that.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I never had any kids come to my house asking for fundraiser money.
All right, any kids, you hear that? I know every kid at the high school is listening to this on YouTube Live right now. They're gonna be knocking your door down.
I mean, besides my own grandkids, I could get that, but I'm surprised that I never hear or see it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and they've done a lot of in-person fundraising events, so the last 2 years, they've done the goat roping.
The goat roping event at the fair. I was able to make it 2 years ago, but my kids had a game the night of this year's. And I caught the goat the first time and I was almost hooked. Almost. You do have that goat rope and shoot, don't you? We'll have to talk to Will.
Something I don't want to be involved in. Okay, well, there's some pretty
Any-
hefty funds in some.
Yeah, any questions on the FFA one that you guys have? Okay,
Before we open for a motion to approve the out-of-state FFA travel request.
Madam Chair, I so move.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor? That motion passes.
the second one that we got request from was one that happened last year. Our girls softball went to St. George during the March warm-up classic. This year, that event would be Friday and Saturday, March 15th and 16th. Now, last year, one of the things that happened is they only took the varsity players. This year,
Mr. Williams, I want to correct you on that. They were only going to take the varsity players, and then they changed and did take JV as well.
Thank you. Initially, they were going to only take the varsity, then they did open that up. Just to be clear for the board, they will be planning to take anybody who's on the team that helps fundraise for it, as the cost for this tournament will be covered through the softball club account. As with all of our athletics, anytime a club or a team wants to do a additional tournament that's outside what we normally do, we push it right back on them to say, well, we're not paying for it. I know our boys basketball team did this a couple of years ago where they went to Parma during a Christmas tournament, and that was something that they had to fundraise for. So we're really consistent with how we do this with all of our different sports. And again, it's just a choice. Last year, the feedback from this was great, where weather here is usually pretty nasty. That this time of year, it allows the kids to get out on good fields and have a chance to. Last year, that was the first time they saw dirt, actually, because they had a lot of snow. This year's a little different. But they would be only missing 1 day of school on this. They'd only miss the Thursday, the day of the travel. We would have to have 2 bus drivers because of the distance of the travel for it. All of everything looks great with it from the school district standpoint. For my recommendation, they have everything in place. Coach Jed Torgerson knows that if there's things that don't come out of the club account, then it comes out of the coach. They're donating their money with that, and again, that's consistent with everything that we've done with it. So
are they doing fundraising from now until that time, or are they just using this money?
they're going to be doing some fundraising from now until then.
The fundraising that they're working on doing is going to be a raffle. And they've had some nice items donated. I think one of the items might be a pair of jazz tickets. One of them might be a Traeger.
Yes,
What?
a
Traeger,
cooking, a smoker,
a smoker kind of
a
thing.
smoker grill.
So I know that is quickly being prepared, and they will start selling tickets for that raffle.
Okay. Are there any other questions on the board? Before we open for a motion to approve the out-of-state softball travel request.
Madam Chair, I so move. Vice Chair.
Is there a second? All right, all those in favor? That motion passes. Thank you. All right, down to our discussion items. 5.1, dyslexia plan.
Oh, Madam Chair, we missed the board financial.
Oh, I'm
rights.
sorry. Yes, board member financial rights.
Yeah, so this will be straightforward. Our newest board member, Mr. Cottle, has not been granted financial rights to sign checks on behalf of the school as part of the 2-person signature requirement. And so we just need a motion to approve that Mr. Cottle will be granted those rights to be a signee for our district bank accounts.
Or be open for a motion to approve that Mr. Cottle be granted financial rights to be a signee for the West Jefferson School District Bank accounts.
Madam Vice Chair, so moved.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes. The floor will be open for a motion to approve that Mr. Cottle be granted the financial rights to be a signee for the West Jefferson School District.
I think we covered that.
Is
Is that it?
there are
Yeah.
two separate ones there?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, that was confused. One was a
Okay.
proposal, one was the action.
Oh, okay.
My bad.
Sorry.
No, my bad on that.
Now we
So
move
I do
on.
have a question on that one, Mr. Cottle. You were saying that you do have a stamp, or do we need to get a stamp? Is that? You have a stamp? Okay. That'd be something, I think that should be fine, shouldn't it, Mrs.
That's
Brown?
fine. He will keep that in his possession, and the reason he has a stamp is because it's difficult for him to sign his name a lot in a row. I just want it clear that the school district does not have stamps from the school board members of their signatures.
Perfect. Okay. So bring your own stamp.
All right, now we move on to our discussion items. 5.1 dyslexia plan.
So I just want to thank our second grade teacher, Mrs. Allred, for coming today. Third grade, third grade teacher. So each district is required to have a dyslexia plan and work towards that. Last year, I believe it was last year, these years all come together, but there was legislation about dyslexia and different requirements that schools needed to have. It might have been 2 years ago. And what our district has done in that time is we have had our teachers have professional development to meet that requirement. And then also there's different requirements for recertification. But even with that, the school has a different dyslexia plan. There's different elements. Mr. Johnson has asked Miss Allred to kind of lead out in that plan. In her previous district, she was part of that committee and led out on that. So we were able to have a lot of her previous knowledge to come in and help us out with that. Ms. Allred, thank you so much for coming in. Is there anything else I missed on your introduction at all?
I don't think so.
Sounds like you've been,
I feel well. I promise I'm healthy. I just lost the voice weeks
Yeah.
ago.
okay.
And I haven't been able to get back teaching all day long.
Can you see the slides?
Can you try just like
Yeah.
a little bit more? Great.
That
Thank
work?
you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, and you just kind of give me a
Great.
motion, or
Okay,
I'll
thumbs up.
slide up and
Cool.
down on it.
Thank you so much for taking the time to discuss this. I'm very passionate about literacy. Can I move this closer?
Yeah, you can do it.
Okay.
You do whatever you need
Okay.
to do.
I'm very passionate about literacy, specifically with dyslexia. I'm pursuing a master's degree right now, and it's been very rewarding to be able to apply what I am learning and see results here in West J. And I'm excited to share that with you.
What are you seeking your master's in?
My master's is in reading, and I will graduate to be a certified coach in both literacy and dyslexia.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's been really. Okay, 95%, as you know, came, we started 95% in the district a couple of years ago. It's a great program. And we've seen tremendous progress from this program throughout the years, and we're still seeing that. It gives us really, really great data to help us pinpoint areas that we really need to focus in on kids to help them get to where they can be successful. And it just helps us. That data is really, really important to help us better serve them. You can keep going.
Got it.
As you know, teachers are incredibly busy. So a question that is really important is you never want data to replace a child, but you want that data to help us better serve that child. I think that's really important to know. But how can we effectively keep track of and utilize data that we're already using instead of adding more to teachers? And I know with dyslexia, a lot of teachers are like, oh, I'm already so busy. How am I going to put more in? And we really took that and thought, what are we using? What do we already have that we can just used differently, more effectively, to better serve in this area with dyslexia. And that's what we've done this year. You can go to next one. So keeping effective data, we decided it came down to really like 3 solid points. Obviously, there's a lot to branch off of these things. But it's simple to record, it's quick to access, and easily understood by many. It's not something that's gonna take hours and hours to decipher or break apart or figure out how to use it. And so those were those like some three large points that we really wanted to make sure that we could help our teachers. So great news is all of our 95% up before this year, all 95% data was being kept with paper and pencil. As you might imagine, papers get lost sometimes, and that data wasn't always getting fluidly transferred from teacher to teacher from time to time. So we wanted to make that data accessible and easy to find, and something that could follow that child year to year. So now all 95% data from every 6 weeks when we retest them on our phonics screener, every 6 weeks, that assessment results are all kept online on OneDrive. All teachers now have access to that. Mr. Johnson has access to that. Our special education teachers have access to that. Our Title I aides have access to that. So all testing results are placed on OneDrive. The cool thing with this, and this is going to be a great job for me, they're all, if you were able to click on this, you would see that it's broken up from all of the Watch Read data in between Hamer and Chariton, and then within each is every teacher has their own file, and then every child has their own file. And those files are going to follow that child from year to year. So we'll be able to see how they progressed, where they get stuck from year to year to year. And it's really, really cool. The teachers who trained on that has gone really well.
And our OneDrive is secure, so
Yes,
people
John.
outside of the district cannot access it.
Yes, John was really helpful in getting that set up. Okay, so keeping effective data, if we go back to those 3 points, this helps us. It's simple to record because it's organized all in the same place. We don't have papers here and here and here. We know where it's at. It's quick to access. And the people that need access have access. So nobody's tracking something down saying, oh, have we found this red? Or have we found Mrs. Williams or Mrs. Fisher? But we know where the information is. So also with this, classes aren't being interrupted because we can access information we need without having to stop classes and things like that. It's easily understood because I've trained teachers on this every month, every professional development work day that we've had. I've been able to work with the teachers and we've been training them of how to record and where to record, and it's consistent so that everybody understands how to read it and understand it. Okay, keeping effective data, it's going to help us pinpoint skill deficits, identify students who are repeating skills over and over and over to be able to see that they're even repeating. Because before with paper pencil, we may not even realize, wait, this child has been in this skill or this intervention for 6 months, right? So now we can see, because we have a log on that online, the dates that they're tested and all of their results, and also to just help our interventions run more fluidly. Okay, switching that, taking that. So we really needed a fluid, really effective, accurate way to record data. Now that we have that, we were ready to introduce more about dyslexia. Dyslexia is a really tricky thing, and it's progressing and changing, and more information is being found out about this every day. And so with that, it can look like a lot of different things. It can look like mispronouncing words just while speaking. It can look like poor handwriting or poor spelling, difficult time attaching sounds with letters, unable to sound out unfamiliar words. It can look with genetics, that can play a factor. They may avoid reading out loud just because they don't know how. They can't figure out why. Or there's just little to no progress in reading. That's one of our largest indicators. Specifically, that's why we really wanted to look at data and be able to track how long kids are spending in a certain skill. So you can move forward.
Okay.
So we introduced a program that I'm very familiar with called, we call Kilpatrick. It comes from the book Equipped for Reading Success. This is an intervention program. It is not a curriculum. It is a systematic, explicit intervention program to help develop phonological awareness. This cannot diagnose dyslexia. Even our children that are working in this intervention, it is not, we made sure our teachers communicate well with parents as they would start a new intervention, that in no way did it mean that they had dyslexia or any of that, but that this was just to help address a phonological awareness issue. Yeah.
So, and you call it Kilpatrick because it looks like David Kilpatrick was
Yes.
the one that
Yes.
developed it.
Mhm.
But with this Equipped for Reading Success program, is there a screener on
Yes,
there then?
Yes, and I'll get to that.
Okay.
Maybe I should have put that first. I just wanted to introduce that.
Okay.
This program, and maybe I should have already talked about this, but I worked with this program in my previous district, and I had a student. I went to a conference in New York City in learning in the brain specifically for reading, and I was sitting in the breakout room, and this person was talking about dyslexia, and at that point, this was years ago, I thought like, this sounds like a student I have. Like she would probably need all of these things. And I turned immediately to my literacy coach at the time, right next to me, and I said, help, I don't really know what to do because I think this is this child. And we got back, the day we got back, she said, I have something for you. And we started this child who had been, if you're familiar with 95, our lowest skill would be working with like CBC words in skill 2, right after lettering and sounds. This child was 2/3 of the way through second grade on a skill 2, which they start skill 2 at the beginning of first grade. She had tested every 6 weeks and got stuck in skill 2 every 6 weeks. And she was so defeated. I mean, like, she hated school because she realized, like, I test the same words every time and I don't pass them. She was very aware of that. And she was very aware of her peers, also like leading the group that she was in. And so we started her on Kilpatrick. We did the screener. We got her on this intervention. Within less than 6 months, she was at a skill 7. And within a year, she completely tested out of the 95% program. And so I was immediately like, this is game changing. How did we get stuck for almost 2 years? And as we got talking about it, it's a phonological awareness issue, which 95% touches the surface. If you look from day to day to 95% intervention, there's probably about 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes if you teach it a little slower, of phonological awareness work, working with word work, creating a new word, adding a sound to make a new word, taking the sound away. A phonological awareness issue needs phonological intervention with awareness, working with words at multiple times a day. And so it just needs more than what 95 has. 95 is great for the majority of our students, but our students that are just stuck need additional interventions, and that's where this comes in. So, yes.
Do you always call it dyslexia? I mean, for these kids that get stuck, is it always usually, or I shouldn't say always, but is it usually?
That's an interesting thing. Go ahead and speak, and I have a thought too. So tell her what you think.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, are you asking if we tell kids that they have we don't ever tell a child that they have dyslexia because we can't diagnose
Is
that.
it usually that they are?
Like I said, there's a lot of,
There's other things.
yeah, there's so many contributing factors into that, but,
Can I speak on that one?
Yeah.
'Cause that's one thing that even when I was a special ed teacher back in 2005, 2006, and I shared this at that conference too. Education has come a long way. It's like traditionally, when I first got in, there was a school psychologist who was about ready to retire when I was a new teacher 20 years ago. And their advice was, don't ever mention dyslexia. Don't say it's dyslexia. Schools can't diagnose dyslexia, so we're not even going to worry about it. And on one part of the argument is, yeah, like the special ed world does not have a qualifying area as dyslexic, but you look into the definition of a specific learning disability, and it says a specific learning disability could be, and it has like 30 different things, and one of those does say dyslexia, but you don't have a regular category. But where the history, like when you're looking 20, 30 years ago, we've come so far when it comes to the science of reading, understanding what people need. You get programs like 95% that have taken all of this research and said, this is how you teach kids with reading difficulties. So to answer your question, what we did, at least when I was in the classroom, we focused more on dyslexic tendencies. And that's why we say, so we don't diagnose. But
We can't.
We don't have the tools to diagnose. But if you have somebody that has 3 or 4 tendencies of dyslexia, why in the world wouldn't we go and give them the program that's certified for kids with dyslexia? Like, it only makes sense to give them what the tendencies are. And so really you're splitting hairs between, are we given a diagnosis? No, we're not diagnosing. But if the tendencies are there, why not teach them that?
And
I don't.
we've talked a lot about this in our training, in our work days, about how we can approach that with parents, saying, explaining, like, because you don't want to throw that at a, not throw it at it, you don't want to address that with a parent and then be completely shocked and like, my child has dyslexia.
Especially if you don't have a plan to say,
Right.
this is what we're going to do.
Right.
Like,
right.
it's so much easier to be like, hey, they might have their tendencies, but look what we can do.
However, I have found that most of the time, the children that are showing these tendencies, their parents are not surprised that they're struggling in school, that they have things like that. And they often are very frustrated. They're like, my child doesn't want to do this. My child can't do this. My child's frustrated. So when you can show them, you know, these are the patterns I'm noticing. Are you seeing this at home? They often are. And so when you can then approach it and tell them, I'm seeing these things, here's what I can do, it's very, very comprehensive to the parent because they typically are so frustrated, they're at a loss of what to do.
Okay.
So, but we're very careful to tell parents, we cannot diagnose, we're not saying they do, but we do want to help them, right? That's our job. Our job is to help them be the most successful they can, see the most success.
Mm-hmm.
And one way is by having a plan for this. So here's the screener. The PASS screener, the PASS stands for Phonological Awareness Screening Test. This is a free formal assessment that's currently on the Idaho State Department of Education's list of recommended dyslexia screeners. Now, again, the screener cannot diagnose, but it helps to pinpoint, just like if you were looking like a 95% the
PSI
screening inventory that we give every 6 weeks is laid out very similarly to the PASI. Okay, let me start that over.
You're throwing some
PASI,
acronyms.
yeah. So many acronyms. The PASI, which is given to kindergarten, typically some first graders may be getting the PASI as well. Every 6 weeks is laid out very similarly to the PAST screener. This is given, it's administered audibly. There's no writing or reading.
And who do you give that to? So just to clarify, the PASS screener is it the screener from this program?
Yes, this program works off of the PASS. Yes.
Off the PASS.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So which of our students here, do you give all students a PASS screener, or only if the 95% PASI indicates that they're low? How are you doing that?
This is where when I first trained on Kilpatrick, there were a lot of parents or teachers like, oh, well, probably all my kids could probably fit somewhere in there, right? So I have little Jimmy who doesn't ever like to read, but maybe Jimmy doesn't just want to read just because that's his thing, right? So how to funnel that down? We take our tier 3 from the iStation, which is the
computer-based test.
Computer-based reading test that they take every month. We take their scores from that. Tier 3 is your lowest. You're critically low, or your other students are below grade level. All of them are screened. That's what we told our teachers to start there. If they're low, we gotta figure out is it phonological scoring, because they can take this screener and do really, really well. So maybe they're testing low because they just our child is there, or, you know, there's so many factors. But we want to rule out phonological learners. So we take immediately alteration. And then we told them, handpick from your tier twos. Those are ones that are like, they fluctuate. They're not always consistent. They're not quite above grade level, but they show some concern. And so that's when we told our teachers to start. Typically, that varies per class. After working with the teachers in the last month or so, I'd say each class maybe has at most a handful that are within that tier 3, and then with maybe a couple of additional
And that kind of falls within, if I remember right, the percentage of individuals that they say have dyslexic tendencies.
Yes.
It's between 1 and 5,
Yeah.
isn't it? Is that the number that you remember?
Yes.
Yeah,
And
and the same thing too is I told, there was
a teacher in my previous school that had a tier 1, well, grade level. She's like, I mean, he's passing, but he has like every tendency.
Yeah.
And so they screened it, and he had phonological awareness, and it wasn't there. And a lot of students who are dyslexic will memorize words. They will just memorize that dog is dog. They don't know how to break down dog to be a dog. They could not do that. And that's exactly what happened to this child. And then within months of working, even though he was on or above grade level, he wasn't able to read or decode new text. Which working with Kilpatrick was able to do.
And sometimes, and that's one thing when you think historically, you have individuals that fly under the radar until they get to 4th grade. And they're like, boom, this kid can't read in 4th grade. How did they get through that? That's usually the time that they memorize so much. But again, with the science and putting these programs into place and the hard work that our teachers are doing, we have things in place where hopefully we can identify those earlier. Because
Yes.
I look at that with like people in my family that have dyslexic tendencies. You know, just because you have dyslexia doesn't mean unsuccessful.
Nope.
Dyslexia doesn't mean you're not going to graduate from college. There's different coping mechanisms, and actually there's actually some strengths with people with dyslexia that others don't have.
Yeah, like thinking outside of the box.
Outside the box, leadership,
Yeah.
athletics, like hands-on, like there's different things that they do. So like when we have these types of conversations, this is like we want to present that this is the plan that we have. We have a plan that we're improving day upon day. Our teachers are working hard at that, but it doesn't mean that just because somebody has dyslexia that you need to give up on you or that you need to be feeling bad for yourself.
I think that's why I'm so passionate about literacy, fluency, and dyslexia, because dyslexia does not mean failing. It doesn't mean you just need to find what path you need to take for success. And it might look a little different, but I have 25 kids in my 3rd grade class right now, and I think every single one of them are on a different path. So once we can help navigate which path, you'd be shocked at how fast they can soar.
So the teachers, how are you finding time to in-service them? How
This
does
is
that happen?
the greatest part about Kilpatrick, because again, teachers are busy. So when I brought this to our staff meeting, the amount of there wasn't any audible groaning, but I'm sure inside their heads like, no, we're not gonna do it.
That fitness one here?
Yep, implementation.
So I knew I was too soon.
That's okay, that's okay. K through 6 teachers have all been trained they've trained how to assess and to score.
Trained where?
Find me through
At the
this.
school.
Yeah.
During the on the in-service days.
Yeah.
Fridays.
Mhm.
I love that.
See, look at this.
Yes,
Yeah.
we probably spent, if I were to add it up, I bet I probably trained 8 or 9 hours to the teachers.
Really?
Maybe that might be a little, maybe 7
Maybe
hours.
7.
Yeah, like if I think like an hour to an hour and a half
Yeah.
each of those times, maybe 7 hours. So they
received
received a good amount of training. They feel confident how to assess, score the assessment, and then take that information and put it into the intervention. Interventions, this is the greatest part. To be most effective, they are less than 1 minute. The point of phonological awareness and word recognition is that it needs to happen frequently and in short amounts of time. So ideally, a student that would need Kilpatrick intervention would get this 3 to 4 times a day, within less than a minute. And I should have given you a picture of what the intervention looks like. It's 10 words. The first word that comes to my mind on one of our very first levels is birthday. And you tell the child to say birthday. They repeat it. And then you say, now say birthday but take away birth. What's your new word? They say day. If they cannot do that in there's 3 different scoring. There's an incorrect, and there's a correct, which you get within 5 1,000ths. And then there's an automatic, which is in less than 2 1,000ths. A child cannot move on in level in Kilpatrick without having all 10 words at 100% automatic rate. That means some kids are working on the same 10 words for a week. And the way we approach it to these kids is there's no instructions given beforehand. All it is I pull little Jimmy back and I say, we're gonna play a word game. I want you to repeat after me and do as I say. And they do it. If they mess up, you say, great job. I'm gonna repeat it a couple more hours. Boom. 10, 20, 30 seconds. If they're doing really well, they might get through a level in 1 minute and you might move on. And then 2 or 3 hours later, you'll come back. So this has kind of been a little tricky in finding times and schedules. And I've worked with every teacher to help identify good times in their schedules. Hey, you have 5 minutes here. You can totally get 5 kids in, or 3 kids. Or, oh, my kids are reading silently. I'm gonna pull 2 back right now because it takes me 30 seconds. There's nothing to set up. There's no prep, there's no printing, there's no instructions. It's very, very quick.
Okay.
I'd say the one hiccup that we have found that took, I think, I don't even say hiccup, took a little longer was finding, for like our special education students, we're running Kilpatrick, working with our aides, because our aides kind of have to shuffle through everything. How to keep track of which kid is on which level, when they're with this day in the morning, this day in the afternoon, this day in the afternoon, midday. And that took us a little bit. And we got in the meeting this morning with the aides, and I think we feel confident about the schedules we created and how to implement it for our special education students. But same for 95% all the data that is being kept on these children, how they progress, their assessment scores, is all going to be in their child's file on OneDrive, which will then follow them through. So now when I get a student next year in 3rd grade, that means they're starting in this history class in 2nd grade, I'll know what day she initially assessed them, how quickly they move through, and where I need to start. That way, I'm not starting at point 1. If they move through 13 levels, that would be wasting everybody's time if I started back on skill 1 in August, right? I'm gonna maybe back up a skill or 2, see if they slid back in the summer and keep up where they took off. And that allows them to soar. The most exciting part about this is I just want to share this. Jill Coleman, our kindergarten teacher, Jill, she's just happy as can be. She came into our classroom dancing on Tuesday. And she was singing and dancing, and I was like, what? She said, it's all right, you have changed my life. And I said, what? What did I do? She has a child, a current kindergartner, who was in the second to lowest skill in walk tree, and was stuck there for months and months and months and months. Because, like I said, we had to kind of get our online, we had to get everything out and going. We didn't roll out introducing Kilpatrick to teachers till December. And then we started the majority of our students at being assessed and starting intervention right after the break. Jill, on top of it, as she always is, started in December. And we helped get her going on one of these students she was really concerned about. And like I said, we PSI every 6 weeks. She says she has not been able to get out of the skill. She can't pass it to save her life. Like, she just couldn't do it. She passed. She started at 3.3. That's where she was and stuck. She passed. Not only did Jill make sure I knew, she didn't just pass them. She passed them very confidently. 3.3, 3.4, 3.5, 3.6, 3.7, 3.8. And then I think it just 4.1, 4.2, now 4.3.
Wow.
Passed with confidence 9 levels. And because kindergarten is the passing, which is all functional awareness levels, it has a direct correlation with kindergarten. Jill's already talked to mom and has set up a schedule. So mom's going to be running some of these interventions at home, practicing these every single day. And they're going to work on that, keeping that, tracking that. and she's gonna work on it all summer long. So that this child can come in August, ready to go, knowing the patterns. And she said, you should have seen the smile on her face. She felt so, so, so smart. And I just think that's the purpose. That's why we're here. We want to find how to help our kids so that we can help them feel smart. Nothing is more sad as a teacher than when a child is down and frustrated and just so upset thinking that they aren't smart. That's not the case. We just need to figure out where to meet them to help them be most successful. And that leads me to just the last thing. I'm a firm believer, when you know better, you do better. And West J has come so far. And we already see how much more we're able to do. And we have a good plan in place. Parents have been talking about that, or we've rolled this out too. They feel confident. Teachers feel confident in running this. Our aides feel confident. And it's just running really smoothly. So thank you so much for your time.
Awesome. Any other comments or questions from the school board? I just want to let the school board know our school district is so lucky to have Miss Allred here. Like, she's an amazing teacher.
Advertise this.
I do. I love being a Panther. Coming here was one of the best decisions. I've loved it. It's a
So,
great place to be.
thank you so much.
Thank you for
Great
the
job.
opportunity. Feel free to reach out to me anytime with questions.
So,
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
All right, we'll move on to our bus appreciation schedule.
So just as a way of discussion, looking forward what to do. So what the bus depreciation schedule is it takes all of the different buses that we have in our, if you look over here on the left-hand side, these are the buses that we've had, and the depreciation amount. And so the state gives us a depreciation amount reimbursement, basically, is what it is. And so if you look, our newest bus is the 24 bus. And when we say 24, it means the 2024 bus. It's line, or I don't know why that's 23. That should match up. But and we bought that bus this last year for 119. But each year, when it comes out, is the state's going to give us $19,000 back this first year, $16,000 back this other year. So in a way, buying a new bus is kind of an investment, but the state reimburses it. We just have to pay up front with it. The way that we've typically done that in our district is through the plant facility. So there's a certain amount of plant facility that we've allocated to buy a new bus. You can see, though, that the buses have actually increased quite a bit from honestly, if you look back to 8 to 21, they were pretty close between 80,000, 83,000. And then, of course, lovely COVID hits, and we go from 86 to 100 to 120, basically, for buses. I've reached out to Mr. Pincock. We're still in discussion with this. There's a couple of other things in place, but this year we're going to get $60,000 back from the state for all of our buses. So in a way, we could strategically look at this and say, if we buy more new buses and keep the buses more current, there might be enough in depreciation that pays for a bus. And so I'm not coming here with what we're going to do, what we're not. I just wanted to just explain what the school bus replacement fund is, or the depreciation schedule is, and put out there, maybe you guys have some ideas and thoughts to move forward.
Do we use the 2002? On a regular basis?
So when you look at like the 2002 bus, there's some of these buses I already know, as we've talked with Mr. Pincock, he wants to surplus some of these.
Okay.
I think the 2002 bus might be Peggy's bus. There's one bus that
Let me pull up my list really fast, Shane.
there's one bus that Peggy says, don't mess with my bus.
How many buses do we need?
It's good for us to have, and I think a couple of these buses honestly aren't working, and they're parts buses. I do. I think we have a couple of them where they can go out and just pull parts off of them. And once we have all the parts off, we're going to just get those out. But I think that's another thing that I want to be able to, just have a conversation right now, introduce this to the board so it's fresh on the board's mind as we start having conversations in the next couple of months with Mr. Pincock, what should we do? What should we go? So Carrie, you have some more
The
information.
07 and the 08 bus. The 07 has a worn out engine and it doesn't start. It even has a hard time starting in warm
Is that
temperatures.
bus number 7 or
6.
bus 6? Yeah.
And then you said
It's a 2008.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, even the 2002, Mike says that some of those older ones
Are still good.
that run better and sometimes you get certain years that, all manufacturers have certain years that they're the lemon years. And I think that 07, 08.
So then the 2008 or the 2009 bus
Mhm.
has, the DPS is cracked and it smokes heavily when it's in idling mode. The part to fix is over $2,500 and it's not worth it because the bus isn't worth that much.
Yeah.
So those are 2 buses. Huh?
No, that's the sad part about this is when you go out to buy these, depending on who you buy them from, if you get them on surplus from schools, you get them for almost nothing. Just because we can't,
So some of these you would want to surplus just so you don't have
Clutter.
buses just,
Yeah.
sitting around.
Yeah.
I
And-
think so,
and-
need that.
The buses he's wanting to surplus, he's probably already pulled off any of the parts that he could use.
So there's a lot of these buses that are just idle and just maybe
Yeah.
not being used, right?
So how many active buses do we have? With routes or?
So we have our travel, our yellow travel, and then our Panther travel.
Okay.
And then we have 5 or 6 regular routes.
no, I think it's 6 or 7 regular
6 or
routes.
7 regular routes.
And then they have 2 or 3 like buses that are ready to roll just in case one of them breaks
In
down.
case one of those break down or in case we have activities that
Yeah.
exceed our travel budget. So. Because we have substitutes who will drive our activities. And so if we have wrestling, girls basketball,
Yeah.
boys basketball, then we have to have one more bus.
And I think with the 2 travel buses, like the most that I've seen, we had 4 different activities going. So we sent 2. So the Panther bus would go, the travel yellow bus would go, and then 2 regular school buses would take kids. And so when you look at that, like I said, like 22 is the travel bus. The Panther bus is not on this schedule, if you remember, because it doesn't meet any of the requirements for that. But 22 could, that's the thing. I just wanted to bring that up to you guys. There's part of it as I've discussed with Mrs. DeGraw, that if we keep building this up and we get closer to that 100,000 where you're almost,
It take 2 years to get your 120, right?
I don't know,
What you meant.
So,
what would you think?
so we get, essentially, because of where the bus prices are, we'll get 20,000 the first year for a new bus.
I thought you said you were getting 60 this year.
We're getting a
60.
total of 60, but for a new bus, because each of these buses are on a different year schedule.
But yeah,
And so our new bus gives us approximately 20,000. The second year it's 16,000. And so if we have several new buses that have the higher depreciation, then that gives us,
not enough money to buy them.
By
right,
the next year's,
Would you have enough money up front to buy multiple new buses?
only with the
only with our
plants.
plant facility. But in our district, our size, we typically wouldn't need to purchase multiple in one year.
I thought we always made it a practice to buy one every year or every.
We budget for one every year.
But we haven't purchased one every year. So I've been here for 5 years and we've purchased 3 buses. Yeah, skip 20, we skipped 23. So anyway, that's all. I just wanted to bring that up to the board, just a way to get that on your mind moving forward.
Next item, legislative update.
So
Mr. Rowland, while you're doing that, I've updated the club page to include club dues for the clubs that do have club dues.
Oh, okay.
with the legislative update, there's a few places that school board members, even a superintendent, and I don't have the school board association. So there's ISB, well, there's ISBA and the IASA, the Idaho Association of School Administrators. These are all advocacy groups for public ed. What I'm learning is that not always are legislative issues completely clear, that you'll have different feedback from the different groups. There's a few things that are in the works that I wanted to bring up and just discuss as a board. I don't want to go too much in the detail because, again, this is a beginning stage and a lot of things can change, whether the bills come out of committee, get up to the floor, a lot of different things on it. So one of the bills that you might see in some of your emails from ISBA is this House Bill 521, the school facilities. And so this is one that it has promise of being a really good thing for schools, but it also comes with a few things that aren't clear cut that might impact us, well, actually will impact us as a small school. And so I'm not quite sure where I'm at with this bill. I'm kind of curious to see. So I think the intent is in the right place, but all of the details aren't completely lined up to be favorable. And so what this bill does is it dedicates 120, well, what the governor calls this is the $2 billion in funding for facilities. So when you look at the regular media, when the governor he said, we need to have something available. We're going to dedicate $2 billion and still cut taxes. And so in a way that happens is the state actually goes out and gets a bond, in a sense, for $2 billion. And they're borrowing that money, and then they're trying to figure out how do they pay back that bond, but then divvy out that $2 billion to schools. And so in a way, you're like, yeah, they need to step up there so it's not just local taxpayers stepping up to fund schools. So now comes the details. How does this work? And so,
Can I clarify?
yeah,
In my mind, is this so that we won't do bonds?
this is, I think, part of it. And so there's things written into there to discourage schools from running bonds. But when you look at that, well, what does that look like? So right now, when we run a bond, if our taxpayers and our constituents vote for it, we have 100% ability to know we're getting this much money and we can do with it what we want. So one of the things that's written into this is on the second, the fund will be distributed based on average daily attendance. It creates a floor of 25,000. And so when we looked at this and we're saying, okay, what are we going to get from this bill? It's not going to be anywhere close to what we've been getting right now, because it's based off of average daily attendance. And that's one of the impacts that all small schools like us, Clark County, anybody else that's our size, we're only going to get out of that potentially 5 or 6, maybe 500,000. But when you look at, well, what are we already doing? We have a supplemental levy and we have a plant facility. When you combine those two, they're $660,000 a year that we get. We've been operating all right with that, but it's still not enough for major reconstruction. It's just barely helping us limp along. And so when our patrons passed the bond and we were able to get 1.5 to come in, and we did all the different roofs throughout the building and updated auditorium, updated, all the different things, the classrooms, you look at the remodels that we did with that this is not going to give us that we want. What's your thought, Carrie?
Well, I just wanted to clarify, the supplemental levy, that's 360,000, does not go to maintenance.
Doesn't at all.
That is 100% salaries and benefits.
And when
So we really only get the 300,000.
The 300,000.
We budget approximately 120,000
for bus.
to purchase a new bus.
So you look at, so the sentiment is good on this one, but when it comes in and says, okay, you will get by daily attendance. Other requirements is a 10-year maintenance plan, which we did that earlier on as a superintendent. But put limits on those who are looking to transition into a 4-day school week. I actually went and looked at that. If this were to pass, one of the things that it says in the bill is school districts on a 4-day school week have to meet the minimum contract days and student days yet to be determined by the State Board of Education. So even if this passes, then we have to wait and see what the State Board of Education passes. And maybe we have to say to our teachers, this is what your contract has to look like, because we either keep our contract here and not get this money, or we change it. What it's looking like is maybe a weekly, hourly amount of school. As I've talked to a couple of different people to say, what could this look like? And some of the people that are having those conversations is, there's been some research that says 32 hours a week, not of instruction, but just 32 hours offered a week is in the sweet spot. Now, I would also say 32 hours, whether you're off 10 or 15 minutes, doesn't really matter. Like when you have this presentation like Miss Allred just talked about, if we're doing those specific things, we're gonna take care of that. And that's been the conversations that we had when we moved to a 4-day. But what it's looking like is we might be 15 minutes short per day of meeting that requirement, which would mean that we would have to come back to the proposal of, do we want to qualify for House Bill 521 money? If we do, we might have to start school at 8 o'clock and end it at 4 o'clock. And that was a discussion we had when we went from the one year to the other, that I proposed that we did that just because it fit with the schedules, but that was something that we also compromised on based on some feedback from patrons. And so, again, you can see where the House Bill 521, but why, my question is why does it matter about 4-day school week with this? Like, how are those connected? It's so you look at through different things. The other thing is it removes the August election date, leaving school districts with only the May and November. Why does that need to be in there? I don't know. How does that, where does that play into it? So you start looking into the details, but ISBA says contact your legislators and ask to support it. That's the part where it's like, I support the idea, I love the idea, but I have concerns, at least as superintendent, about the details. Now, the other advocacy group that reaches out, and this is this is called the Total Optimistic Advocates Dedicated Students. These are things, again, I don't agree or disagree with either ISB or this. I just want to use this as, these are things that they come in and say this is a step in the right, but they also highlight where the bill has an issue. And one thing that they mentioned is, they just said that the Idaho Constitution, Article 3:16 reads that the unity of subject and title, every act shall embrace but one subject and matters. And so their question is, does the proposed House Bill 521, is it really only one subject, or is it more than one subject? And so are they commingling it? So that's a fair point to ask on it. But the things that it doesn't address is really, it's not an issue of like the bond passage issue. It depends on how you're looking at it. If you want to eliminate all bonds and make it harder for districts to have a bond, then maybe that's the intent behind it. But in my mind, we will never, under House Bill 521, if we have to build like an auditorium or anything big, it actually makes it harder for us to actually run a bond. And it takes away local control. Basically, you're saying I'm changing what we're currently doing for a guaranteed amount to come in, but that guaranteed amount is only going to be a small amount. We're never going to be able to build anything big if we have to. It distributes ADA, which I've already talked about. it does not address, and also the bond equalization will go away. That's one of the greatest things about this, the last bond that we had with the 1.5. Carrie, give me a ballpark on the bond equalization. So this is gonna be paid back sooner because of the
Right.
bond equalization.
So our first year, we got 90,000. It's essentially paying for our
Interest, where we didn't have any interest on that one.
Right, and so 90,000 and then I think 60,000.
And are there 3 years of
There
it?
are 3 years.
So we're thinking that we're gonna get about $200,000 that came to us because of the bond equalization. That cuts
that
into
now
and helps
will
us
allow
pay
us to
off,
pay it off.
but that's gonna be taken away through this so you look at 521, they're taking away the August election, they're taking away the bond equalization. They're not
I'm
even,
surprised anybody wants this.
big districts might,
What do they
Well,
need?
those smaller districts that cannot pass a bond at all,
But that's not
Not-
even good for them.
not necessarily.
because it's based on
And
attendance.
if
It's based on ADA.
it's based
so
on ADA,
That means these big schools who have, these big districts that have 20 schools in their district, they're gonna get lots of money and they're gonna be fine.
They're still not gonna get
But like,
as much as a bond.
no,
No,
they wouldn't. And they would probably have to try to save it up
Yeah.
over time to do it. You look at like Salmon. Salmon's not gonna be able to build a new school from House Bill 521. And the way House Bill 521 is written right now, Salmon has a supplemental levy. They have to take that money that they get and pay down their supplemental levy first. Supplemental levies are different than, so there's issues with it. So I wanted to share that partly really with the legislative, because I don't want to get hung up on it because it's still early on, but that could impact our calendar. That's why I wanted to wait. I put these two purposely on here just to give heads up to the board. And like I said, both of these attachments, it's not like I fully endorse one or the other. I look at that, I try to see which one's best for our group. These are just emails that I receive. I look at them, but then I also look at it, what's best for West Jefferson. And so a lot of the other things with the legislative updates is still a little bit early on stuff, like, but we're keeping an eye on it, and I'll keep the board available. If you guys have any questions as you guys read news articles or anything like that, feel free to call me and we can discuss it as well. But I just wanted to give you guys an idea. So if people are saying, oh, this will be great, schools will get all this money, actually, it's not exactly best for us, unless some of those things are tweaked. Like if it was really just something saying, let's come help you, pull out that other stuff. Like, don't, like, make life easier, not, hey, we're making life easier, but making it harder in a different way. So, any other questions on legislative updates? No? Okay,
Somebody go into that Hagon Hill.
I don't think we have anybody from our going over.
Calendar options.
Haven't changed anything on there. I'm not sure if you guys have heard anything back from anybody.
Couple comments.
I just-
They want the June.
Yeah.
They what?
They don't want the June.
So, they don't like the option 2 is not,
Yeah.
Not in the June
Okay.
at all. That's just two people.
okay. And like I said, most people that I've talked to are the same way with that. They lean towards option 1. I did have some staff members ask, why can't we take President's Day off and go that Friday? My response to that is, anytime we have school on a Friday, the attendance is so low, and then that comes back and hits us financially. I also looked at every single 4-day school week in the area. None of them go on President's Day.
No, they all go on it.
Oh, excuse me. None of them take it off is what I was trying to say, but they all do that. And so what, did you guys get any feedback about high school starting 2 days earlier than everybody else?
Nobody cared.
Nobody cared about that?
Yeah, different.
Indifferent? Okay. Okay. I think because of House Bill 521, I was thinking that maybe we adopt this calendar next month. I think we kind of wait and see, because really what that would look like is our start and end time might have to change to see if we're eligible for that. And I don't even know what that would look like for Hamer, where they're not very clear where you have elementary groups with that as well. So Okay,
So instead of going a longer day, and to consider not having like full weeks off on some of those holiday times.
you could, it just, the way that the holiday lands, like on Christmas, the middle of the week, that makes it really difficult to,
It's only a difference of 15 minutes. It's starting for Territon, wouldn't it be for the high school?
yeah,
It would be 5 minutes earlier start time, 10 minutes later.
later.
Is that all? So 15 minutes, yeah, because it's 8:05 to 3.
It would be.
Okay, so it's just 15 minutes.
And what they were saying is not instructional time. I was thinking instructional time. I'm like, there's no way we're going till 4, because you can't count the passing time. But I think the study they were looking at just says, do you offer that? So those are all unknowns. We don't know what that will look like, but I just.
It'd be interesting how it would impact other districts where they have a release time earlier to allow for busing.
Yes,
Because, typically they release their elementary a little bit earlier because then they have to come back for a second round for the.
I will reach out and ask about that. Because with the group that we're keeping an eye on that one to say, what does that look like? But that's a really good question. Because I'm thinking it might just be secondary where they say that,
Okay. The 8 to 4.
8 to 4. But what I'm worried about is if 521 passes and they basically write in there, the state board will figure this out. We've always gone, all of our calendars have always been based off of instructional hours. Is this going to now change it to instructional days? And if that does, that there are more.
I know districts back east that do instructional days and they start the first week of August and go until after Memorial Day.
Yeah, because it's written in their state. And I think that might be, though, like, I'm not sure who the bill sponsor is on this one, but that might be the mindset of, hey, we live in the city, like we still have a lot of agricultural communities in Idaho, and we're one of those.
So is the idea to just standardize the length of time for schools statewide and the length of the school day statewide? So,
Maybe.
so you don't have districts starting on different weeks and taking different holidays.
There
So
could be a
it's not
lot of
left
reasons.
up to the individual districts to decide.
See, that's why I still don't understand why that has to be included in a finance, in a facilities bill. It's because the wording in it says this facilities bill is going to also include accountability. Accountability to what? Accountability to what you think schools should look like instead of what our school board should look like in. Like, if you're really thinking that the accountability of your accountability to fund facilities has nothing to do with the calendar that we have. Like, you do lose your local control on it. So.
All right, I guess we'll move to our last item, calendar, special.
I don't anticipate a special work meeting until, I know this next week, just an FYI for the board, Mrs. DeGraw and I will be attending the IASBO, which is the business manager meeting. And that's gonna be next week. I'll be there for the first day and a half. We'll know more a little bit. Today also is the day where the financial outlook for the district is given. So we may call for a special meeting just to come in and update the board on where we're at financially, where I'm looking at for FTEs for next year. That way we can meet with the board on a work meeting. It will be a public meeting, so if we hold it, anybody out there can come to it. But I think we wait until after IASBO to determine whether we need to do that. Don't you think?
I
Mr.
agree.
Brown?
I agree.
What time is that? I mean, what are you talking?
Well, tell us when you would be available, because you said you had
I'm leaving the 9th.
the 9th, so prior to the 9th. Okay.
Maybe that first.
Getting back to 25th.
If we do have one, I think we would shoot somewhere on that week of March 4th. Is that something that you guys have availability?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll just keep that. And then the next board meeting is the 21st on that board meeting.
If there's no other comments, the floor will be open for a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, so moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, the motion passes. This meeting is adjourned.